everyone, welcome to another video on my channel. I am Marshall3498. My channel consists of motovlog, different rider topics, gear reviews that I currently own and have thoroughly tested, some scenic places where I live at, rider advice and some bike reviews, and also some drone footage from scenic places where I live. On today's topic, what I'd like to talk to you all about is something that, of course, everybody has their own topic on, and there's lots of videos on YouTube about this same topic, but this is my view and my personal opinion. What is the best quote-unquote starter bike? And, you know, this can be argued by anybody. Everybody has their different opinion on it, but my take on it is, I guess what I'm going to really talk about more than anything is the best starter bike for each kind of motorcycle. I guess I'll start with the easiest one first. Cruisers. You know, I myself have ridden a 600 Shadow that my wife had for probably 6 months. Rode it several times, and that was the beginning stages of my riding experience when I had my GS 500F before I even started my channel. My take on the Honda Shadow 600 VLX is what she had, is most commonly known as, or just the 600 Shadow. That or the 750 Shadow, either one. There's not a whole lot of power difference by the numbers, but the 600 she had, I think, made about 50 horsepower. Not an extreme a lot, but something that I think that a new cruiser rider who's looking for a cruiser would not really grow tired of for at least a full year, maybe two, depending on really what they used the bike for and how they rode it. The only downside of that particular bike that I'm speaking about is, you know, for one, it's a low seat height. Two, it's only 600, so it's not extremely slow, but it's not extremely fast. It's not intimidating as far as power-wise. Brakes on it are fair, really comfortable, you know, forward control, feet position. Bars, you know, your back, at least when I rode it, was just about completely straight. The only reason it wasn't is just because of the reach and the way you have to put your feet. So I think any stature of person could ride that under one circumstance. You know, extremely low seat height, something like 28 inches or something like that. I'm 5'10", and I was completely flat-footed a lot, and a lot of knee bend. So my wife, she's 5'5", and she rode it with no problem, and even still had a little bit of bend in her knee. The only problem with that bike, in my opinion, is it's extremely top-heavy for what it is. I think that bike only weighed like 450 pounds, you know, ready to ride, wet rate, that's full of gas, full of oil, so on and so forth, ready to ride. It wasn't that terribly extremely high, just at low speeds, and I think somebody who's not necessarily a very big person, you know, as far as strength goes, would kind of have a hard time with that a little bit in traffic until they got used to it. But man, once on that bike, once you got the clutch let out, you know, got it about almost time to shift out of, you know, short shift a second, or say about 10 miles an hour, just going along good in first, really kind of went away. Handling on that particular bike was very neutral and forgiving as far as inputs, because it kind of took some more body English to move it around. So if a new rider, you know, kind of wasn't real smooth to the lean angle and the throttle and stuff, it didn't really seem to mind too much, just because it actually had a pretty good sized back tire on it. I want to think it was either 150 or 160 rear. So good overall bike. Only a 4-speed though, so out on the interstate it's gonna kind of, you know, be straining, say, above 70, 75. But, you know, for the average rider who not necessarily going to do a lot of touring on it in their first couple years of riding, I think it'd be fine. Those bikes are plentiful anywhere, used or whatever, because Honda made a gazillion of those, although they don't really make a new one anymore. But that brings me on to another topic about new riders is don't spend a whole lot of money on a new bike. You know, yeah, the new bikes in the showroom, they're nice, they're pretty, all the new gadgets and so on and so forth. But in my opinion, you're probably going to do something, just, you know, a mistake of rider inexperience, and just drop it. And, you know, if you do that with a new bike, your feelings are hurt real bad. If you do that with a bike that's $2,000, it kind of messes it up a little bit. It's not as big of a deal. Plus, you know, on that type of bike, you can get away with, of course, depending on where you live, liability-only insurance, you know, or maybe if you're, say, a little bit older, mature age, say in your 40s, you can probably still get a pretty good deal on full coverage insurance. That's your own thing. Spend your money however you see fit. On to my number 2 type of bike, and that is the standard or quote-unquote sports bike. Best beginner bike, I think. On these, I think you got a couple different options, depending on which manufacturer you want to go with and stuff like that. And, you know, depending on how mature you are, you can get by with a bike that has maybe a little bit too much power for a beginner. There's been several people, of course, this goes back to my argument that I was saying don't spend a lot of money on a new bike. But the FZ07's a fantastic motorcycle. I have not ridden one yet, but I've heard a lot of good things about them. You know, like 50 horsepower, but real broad torque curve, so you're not going to have to be real picky on your shifts like you would, say, at 300 or 250 or whatever. You know, the 250 or 300s are probably fine for new riders like the R3, the Ninja 300, so on and so forth. But it depends on the type of riding you do. If you do a lot of commuting on it, a lot on the interstate, really ringing it out, to try to really always have to be on it or in the perfect gear, you're going to grow a little tired of that. The best thing that I can say for a new rider is on that class, get something that weighs its weight real low, you know, not top heavy, wears its weight low, real easy to move around, just for its load speed stuff. It makes it so much easier. I can ride this bike, of course, by the speedometer at 0 miles an hour, where it's not even going fast enough to pick it up yet, and not even put my feet down. And it doesn't really care at my experience level and the way I know how to ride it. But, you know, like the FZ07, really light bike, really low seat height. A new rider is not going to have any trouble flat-footing it. And I think that's probably where new riders are scared more than anything, is the whole flat-foot thing. You don't really realize how little that matters unless you live in a really, really populated city where you're constantly at slow speed. But if you live in a, you know, kind of rural area, that's not really that big of a deal. Don't let that discourage you from getting the bike that best suits you. But, you know, I don't know, you know, the whole standard thing, like Yamaha makes a different version of this bike. I'm currently riding the 07 Yamaha FC6. Another Yamaha bike, of course, as you can probably tell, I like Yamahas, obviously. Another beginner bike that I think would do well for anybody is Yamaha makes an FZ6R. And the R is basically, all it is a detuned version of this motor. This bike makes a little over 100 horsepower stock, so it's not slow by any means. And I think this bike would probably be a little bit too much for a new rider. But the FZR makes quite a bit less. I think it only makes about 75 horsepower. Don't quote me on that. But it's definitely enough power to get you in trouble, but it's something you can grow into, kind of like the FZ07. Not so much, but not so much you're going to get bored with it, because I think, you know, with the 250s and stuff, I think people are just going to grow tired of them once they learn how to ride and be like, all right, this is a little too slow. I'm constantly having to worry about what gear I'm in, yada, yada, yada. Of course, everybody's different. Everybody rides different. Everybody rides in different kind of you know, population or unpopulation, and a different type of riding they do. But I think on that you can, like, say the first bike I had, GS 500F. Rode it for about 6 months and didn't really necessarily need this particular bike that I'm riding. But I was, you know, I commute a lot to work, and like out on the interstate, you know, at 65, 70, 75 miles an hour, just quite a bit of vibration from that parallel twin that I owned. So, you know, after say 20 to 30 minutes, it kind of made your feet and your hands a little numb, and I think that was the biggest thing on that bike. But those are great bikes as well. Nothing wrong with them whatsoever. There's several different kind of choices. A 600 R6 or something, yeah, they're gorgeous. Yeah, they're the cat's meow. Yeah, they're popular. I would not recommend any rider get one of those at all. It's just, you know, yeah, they don't make a lot of power until you get up top, you know, 8, 9, 10,000 RPM. But the temptation's there. If you're not a mature person, if you're like, ooh, let's see how fast it go. If you're rolling that throttle too hard and not learn throttle control and have a bike that's too much for you, it's not going to be a pretty day at all, and then you're at the very least going to be beat up for a couple weeks, maybe more, maybe less, who knows, and the bike's going to be trashed. And then, that'll discourage a lot of new people riding, that'll scare them off of it. Of course, it probably would a lot of people, sure. But the 600s, 750s, 1,000 sport bikes, of course, everybody could say, well, I started out on one, blah, blah, blah. I started on Hayabusa. Well, yeah, that's great. But the average person, I don't think that's a good idea. I think you want to stay away from anything, say, over 70, 75 horsepower in the sport bike / standard category. Third type I want to talk about today is the dual sport. Dual sport, enduro, on-road, off-road, we would call it. I think, any of the 250s would be fine. Of course, they have a really tall seat height, so unless you're a fairly tall person, I'm 5'10", and some of the adventure bikes that I rode, I'm just on the half flat-footed, and that's not a big deal to me because a lot of a couple of adventure bikes and the other bikes that I ridden that I couldn't quite flat-foot wore their weight real low, so slow speed handling was excellent, so that wasn't a big deal. But any dual sport, of course, you could probably lower it and do that and make it okay for a new rider, but if you actually try to ride it off-road and can't flat-foot it and not know how to off-road or on the street, probably not a good idea to start out with a dual sport. But, the dual sport / adventure category is really popular right now, but there again on that, try not to spend a whole lot of money. Go ahead as a new rider, go ahead and buy all your gear when you take the MSF course, head to toe. If you can wing it, it's a good idea. Skin grafts are expensive and painful, from what I hear. Never had one, never went down myself, but doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Every time I go out, no matter if I'm commuting to work or not, all my riding gear, head to toe, is on. I think that's the best thing a new rider can do. Of course, yeah, you're gonna sweat like this guy in front of me on a Harley. They're both riding in half helmets, t-shirt, and blue jeans. To each his own. He may have been riding a while, but you never know when that wrong thing's going to happen. And yeah, all the gear is probably not going to save your life. You may still have broken bones, but I'm sure a broken bone is much less painful than skin graft for 6 months, I would think. I don't know, but you would think so. But new riders, just go out there and take your MSF course, do the responsible thing. Yeah, it's a lot of money for nothing, but it's fun. I think anybody that's never rode a bike before, really no bike experience like I have, I took it, and by, say, halfway through the first day of riding, I was like, ooh, what do we get to now? This is cool, So on that, guys, that's about all I got for this topic as far as kind of my take on the whole beginner bike thing. My advice, my view, my opinion. Take it as a grain of salt, whatever you want. But on that, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. If you got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer for you. But on that, guys, ride safe and keep shiny side up. See you.